Hello and welcome to the Marketing Strategies for 2025 series hosted by Exposure Ninja. This week we're going to be talking about digital PR and how you can do a fantastic strategy for getting the very most out of digital PR and promoting your business this year. To kind of get that digital visibility, you're going to need three crucial and critical elements, and that's to have a fantastic narrative authority, to be data-driven and to kind of put a fantastic story out there into the world, and also to make sure that you're getting some amplification via multiple channels. So whether that's via SEO, PPC, some paid social, paid search, a little bit of everything, you're going to use all those channels available to you to tell the world about your brand, your business, the products and services you sell. And this week I am joined by two of the best people possible to talk about this subject. We've got Charlie Marchant, who's the CEO of Exposure Ninja, as well as Abigail Daunton-Johns, who's the head of content at Exposure Ninja. How are you both doing?
Go, Charlie. I was going to go as well. Yeah, really good. Thank you, Dale.
Yeah, really well. Thanks, Dale. How are you doing?
I'm doing super. I'm really enjoying this series. We are approaching the very end of it as well. We've got just a couple more left. So if you haven't heard the other 6 or 7 episodes we've done already, you can go to exposure.ninja/strategies 2025, and I'll make sure that's linked down below. You'll be able to catch up with all these series in which we talk about how to create fantastic strategies that will help you hit your marketing goals via SEO, generative engine optimization, PPC, and so on. But let's get into the details of what we're talking about today. Actually, let me hit you with a question, Abby. How has digital PR changed in 2024?
So a couple of things have changed. A few of them, it probably, as I say it, it's probably really obvious, but I think the first thing, and across all of content, has been AI content. So as you can imagine, people are using AI more. The amount of AI that's going into PR means that journalists have become so much more selective. So you can't just go and like produce a load of press releases and send them in that are AI generated. They're being a lot more selective in terms of expertise, in terms of data, in terms of like first party experiences as well. It's just been so much more important. Alongside that is obviously the expertise side. So having someone in your business who is an expert, who's got qualifications, that has become so much more important. And if you have that, if you have someone in your brand who is an expert in a certain subject, then that is just an absolute priority now. Link building is another one too. So people just used to be able to go out and buy links, buy spammy ones, just a lot of like transactional link building going on. And again, this needs to be built now around good quality content. Just moving away from the spammy sort of like black hat link building tactics. It's just even less used anymore. And I think the last one is sort of the merge between like SEO and social proof. So I feel like for a while it was kind of SEO digital PR, and then you've also got the traditional digital PR, and they're kind of merging a bit more together. So it's more about brand awareness, about building credibility. So you're still building those backlinks, but you're also building that social proof and that credibility with your audience as well. It's a bit of a mix of the two.
Charlie, you've obviously been involved with digital PR for quite a long time. What do you see as like the biggest and most drastic changes with digital PR since maybe 2014 compared to 2024 and now 2025?
We're going back decades. We're showing our age. Biggest changes that I think we've seen. I think like Abby is saying, integrated channels is massive. I think people traditionally thought of PR, and especially back in 2014, where it was really new in terms of what digital PR is and how that integrates with social. People were traditionally thinking of PR as like, TV ads that people run, or the kind of ads that you might see even at the start of before the trailers in cinemas, and that being like a campaign that someone was running, or even a campaign that was like about an ethical issue or about some big new product release and that kind of thing. Where we think of digital PR now, and we're really thinking about how that integrates with links, how that integrates with brand and brand perception, how it integrates with content marketing and all the SEO work we're doing, and how you're showing up on social. I think PR campaigns are so much more accessible for businesses now than they once were. And 2014, that was really new. There were only a couple of agencies really, including us, who were actually running digital PR campaigns as part of SEO and content marketing work. And now that's really commonplace in SEO agencies and in SEO teams in-house as well, that PR isn't this, separate thing that's only done by certain people in certain industries. It's now very widely accessible to businesses because it's just such an integrated part of digital marketing. And I think that's probably the biggest shift, is just that anyone can do it, and it doesn't have to be this massive TV ad campaign type thing, though those are cool as well. Like, I like those too. But it can also be something that we do online, something that we do with press releases, with journalists, for certain kinds of publications, all of that kind of thing coming together. I do think we've seen more and more shifts as well in businesses thinking bigger about how they want to be seen with their PR campaigns. And historically, that may not have been the case, except for some of the biggest brands out there who've, got the budget and resource and energy to go after big brand ideals. But I think we're seeing that more and more with PR being accessible. We're seeing that more with smaller businesses as well, finding that they can actually push into talking about their values and talking about their ethics and talking about, whatever it is, the things that they care about, as well as their service and product. So those for me are the biggest shifts of the past 10 years.
Sorry, question out there. Okay, so we're talking a little bit about various different ways of doing digital PR. One of the ones I picked up across both what you've both been saying is that the kind of traditional way that people would go about getting links a couple of years ago isn't really effective anymore. So my question now is, what's really stopping people from continuing to do that, from going ahead and buying links, going to an agency who is going to guarantee them 25 links a month, or I can go on their shop part of their agency website and buy 50 links for £1,000? Like, what's stopping me from doing it? Is there a reason, or is it perfectly acceptable today?
Well, Google just doesn't see them as valuable anymore, or as valuable. There may be occasions where you can go out and buy those links and still see a bit of an increase in domain authority. You may see a little bit of traction, but it's just not really a good long-term strategy. You really want to be building valuable links with great content. And it really is, as Charlie was saying, it's all combined together now. So you really want to think about it as your audience first. What does your audience want to see? And you want to be creating content that people actually want to share. I think that's the main part of it. It's not going out with the attitude of, I want to build this many links. You want to build really good quality links instead, because that's what's going to improve the domain authority. It's going to improve your credibility. It's going to improve that referral traffic. It's kind of an overall thing, but then just building those spammy transactional links just isn't as valuable anymore. I think to touch on as well, without going off on a tangent, is the AI search as well, is that's so important. And even though, often the priority is to appear in AI search for your actual website, there's so many opportunities now through PR that you can appear in the AI search for something you've done through PR as well. So it's all linked in together. It's not just the original Google algorithm. There's this whole other part of AI search too, which is all of these spammy links just don't really filter into that at all.
I also think over the years, marketers and business owners as well have become a bit more savvy about spammy links too. I feel like we've met enough poor people in businesses who have been through algorithm updates and got caught with penalties for having massive, spammy backlink profiles through all sorts of PBNs and things that I don't even want to imagine that they were doing with link building. And I think that general knowledge now about SEO is just much higher in the marketing community, which is amazing. And I think that means that more and more people understand the value of quality links and also running quality PR campaigns that aren't only just narrowly focusing on, like, we must have this many links per month in our profile, as opposed to, this is what we're trying to present ourselves as a business. This is what we want to say about ourselves. And we want to have quality publications also talking about us and representing us well, because, those things do matter to what your business looks like and how you're represented online. And I think more people are just aware of that.
I want to tap in a little bit into what was said before about AI content impacting digital PR or PR or just content marketing in general. We've talked before about how just generic AI content is never going to help anyone. It's more of a hindrance than anything else. But have you seen how AI has helped kind of help a digital PR campaign come together or scale? Has it been useful in any way? Should marketers be trying to apply the usage of AI to digital PR, or do we stick to just human experts and that's it?
I think with AI, I don't necessarily think that it's completely a hindrance, because I think it can really maximize your existing efforts. So you can use AI to kind of draft out an outline for a PR, for a digital PR story, but something that AI lacks is that human experience, is that expertise. So you can use AI to help you with the content production, but you really need to add in that human experience, that expertise, or other parts as well. If you've got like a data study, or you've got some original unique data, which separates you from what other people might be talking about a subject, is what's going to make you stand out, and it's what's going to get that content shared on like those bigger publications within your industry. So I don't think AI is totally a hindrance. I just think that because so many people use it now, you need to differentiate yourself. So you need to have the expertise, the human experience, the first party data that AI isn't very good at putting in.
Now that we kind of touched a little bit upon like the impact of the last 12 months, what does digital PR look like for this year? We can use AI to assist us and brainstorming and putting the idea together that's based around, a human idea, but expanding it, doing the research, perhaps using AI to reach some of the people we want to tell about our idea and our story through tools like Apollo, just to kind of get that message out there. What does the digital PR look like today?
So I think you just touched on a few of them there. So AI-driven content discovery. So PR teams need to optimize content that they're doing with like thought leadership and expertise and first-party data. I think there's going to be a lot more collaboration with SEO teams, especially with like the AI search, and kind of working together on how that all links in. Multi-channel PR strategies. So Charlie, I think you touched on this a bit as well, that journalists are spending more time on places like LinkedIn, or even more niche places like Substack. So trying to engage with people beyond just like the traditional media pitching, I think that's super important. Using data as well to target different audiences. So Charlie, I always forget the name of that, the one that you mentioned, but like social listening tools and things to try and find out about like public sentiment. What do people think about your brand? I think that one's super important. In terms of the actual content, and I think we see this across all channels, is that we're kind of moving more into like interactive content, a lot more video, a lot more visuals. I think as well, adding in there that a really well-rounded digital PR strategy also includes things like podcasts, and not just the typical articles that people share as well. They're still useful, but it's just a bit more well-rounded. And I think as well, there's a big part around influencer strategy too. So like micro influencers and nano influencers, I think are becoming even more important, that especially for brands, it kind of seems like that's where a lot of brands are going to, because they get the most value from their campaigns. So it is something, especially for e-commerce businesses in particular, their PR strategy should definitely include that like influencer aspect as well.
I want to dive a little bit more into what you said around interactive elements. Expand a little bit more on what you mean by that, and what you've seen people are putting together.
So I think it's more around creating like video content along with articles, or like audio content. And the main purpose behind that is making it shareable. So I think we've kind of moved away a little bit from like sharing articles. I know it's, especially with Substack now as well, it's kind of having a bit of a revival. But I think content that includes video, content that includes like an interesting image or infographics, it just stands out more than a text article. So that's the main purpose behind it, is it's just going back to creating that quality content that people want to share. We're sort of going at it of like, what are people going to find interesting, which is going to get our name out there. So making it as interesting as possible. And I think we spend so much time watching videos on screens that it makes total sense that it's going to be a big part of digital PR as well.
I think as well, probably just content repurposing has got quicker and easier, and many businesses do it because it takes so much resource to think of new angles and new ideas and create new videos, new podcasts, new articles all of the time, which is an awesome thing to be doing if you've got the time and the resource for it. But actually, one of the most effective strategies that we see across content marketing and PR is being able to repurpose those same topics, because you can say things in different ways, and you can probably find 20 different angles for the same one topic or article that you've written, and then also present that in a podcast format or a video format. And I think, like you were saying, Abby, I think we're also seeing behavioral shifts from people because of the way things are changing, that not everyone wants to use the same medium for the way that they take in information. So I know that we've had clients who are sort of worried about, oh, am I repeating myself, or am I just creating a duplicate in a different format? But so much of the time that's actually reaching someone who didn't want to take it in a different format. So you're actually expanding your reach with the things that you're saying, and you're reinforcing the messages about your brand and what you want to be known for on different mediums as well.
I definitely think that there's room, and now certainly the technical side that allows you to be on every platform at the same time. But I also agree that sometimes just picking one or two channels to be fantastic at, just to be known for. So, for example, if you're in the B2B space, it's very smart to just pick LinkedIn as your main channel alongside some SEO and so on, and dedicate to that. But if you're in a B2C space, you may say, well, Instagram or Facebook work perfectly well for us. Maybe not SEO, but I need some PPC to kind of recapture the people I interacted with via my social accounts. I don't think there's anything wrong with either of those two approaches. It very much comes down to how much money you have to spend on it, how much personal time and resource you have to spend on it as well. I know personally that I've been using AI more to kind of take more of our content and repurpose it in different ways. It takes me far less time than it used to. Like I can write a post for this very podcast tomorrow that will take me 2 to 3 hours using these AI tools that would have previously taken me an entire day to just go through write it out myself, instead of using a tool to do the transcript for it. And instead of giving, now I give the transcript to whichever AI tool to turn into some social posts or turn into this. Like, there's a lot more available to you, but it comes down to really understanding your audience, where they are. Like you said, Charlie, if they are going, or in your case, you said, Abby, about going over to Substack instead. If you identify which platforms your target audience is using, you can just narrow it down and use AI to kind of support that. On that subject of understanding where your audience is, how do you know what kind of content to produce for them? So everyone's becoming more aware that digital PR is a great part of your content marketing tool set. But how do you know what to write? What's going to, is it, you got to decide based on whether it's going to get coverage, if people are interested in the subject matter, but how do you figure that out? And I don't know which of you want to take that one.
I think there's a few elements to that. So a big one is going to be competitor research. And when you're looking at competitors, you kind of got your direct online competitors, but also your dream competitors, like which type of publications are they reaching out to? What channels are they using? That's such an important one. And identifying like, what are your absolute dream publications that you really want to get to? But also as well, what are the ones that, there's different levels of publications in there. But I'm like a big fan as well of like newsjacking and things, and not being too close-minded about it, because there's so many amazing opportunities to be had in PR if you can think of different ways to spin it as well. If you can like jump on a news opportunity and kind of spin something that's a little bit relevant to you. An example that I have was, just to make sure I don't mess up the name of the place, there was one with Taylor Swift where there were people in a concert in Edinburgh, and everyone was dancing so much that it caused seismic activity. And the British, I can't remember what they're called, but it was one of the people who measures seismic activity, and they actually reported on that using Taylor Swift, and they kind of jumped on the fact that Taylor Swift was in Edinburgh, but it's still linked into there. So there's so many different ways to identify it. I think the main one is going to be your SEO strategy. What keywords and what content are you focusing on? How can you make that interesting to people and within your niche as well? But also being a bit open-minded, because you can always jump on opportunities. We really love to keep an eye on like help a reporter out and things like that here. And if we see something that's related to a client, we'll go, how can we make this work? How can we fit this in with this client? Because if it's a really good opportunity, there's always a way we can kind of like try and spin it to get them in there too.
Yeah, I absolutely think one of the easiest places to start is with the keywords that you actually want to rank for, because they just describe what your business does in a really clear way. And it probably makes it easier to think about the things that your business like tangibly has. So if you're location based, we're a business based in Nottingham, so I can go after publications in Nottingham and talk about those kinds of things. If you're a B Corp, then you're a business that can talk about perhaps social and ethical sides and your values. And then of course you have your main, whatever it is, however you make your bread, your main product or service, and the industry or related trade publications that you want to be seen in, the things that your audience will be reading. And I think the bit that maybe everyone gets a bit carried away with is like the trending stuff, and that's really, really awesome. It's probably not your mainstay of your strategy, because the trending stuff, it depends on what's rising. And if you're just don't have anything on trend at the moment, like, well, it's a bit of a shame. You actually still need a PR strategy that's moving forward, that you can keep building and using momentum for. And those trend bits, when those like golden nuggets finally spring out, like, fantastic, you can go after one. One of the things I really liked to use for those, I used to use BuzzSumo quite a lot to see what other people were publishing. But more recently, I really like Exploding Topics. And you can actually just put your keywords into Exploding Topics and see what kind of things are massively growing. Or it will just show you, general keywords, general things that are being searched for a lot more, and the kind of growth that they're having. And you can set a time period so that you can set, a tighter one if you want to look at something that's sort of popping off in the previous week as opposed to the previous 12 months. And I think sometimes in there you can just get a bit of inspiration for something you might want to go after in your PR and link building strategy. That Taylor Swift one is an excellent opportunity that company seized. Good work, them.
I think in the past, when I used to, I once upon a time, when I was more of a digital strategist and head of marketing, I used to gather a list of like all of the interactive assets that I would find that various people in the marketing space, other agencies were doing. And one kind of thing that I spotted for them is that they were highly creative, and that they were just trying to do something that was associated with the brand, but sometimes not immediately directly. And I'm thinking of one example, which was for, I think it was a poker website, or maybe a comparison website for finance. I can't quite remember. It was like a millionaires row. It told you like how much money all these millionaires had and what school they went to, and various other information. It's very interesting, and journalists were like, great, I can just reshare those images and stuff in my post. It makes my day of my goal of producing 5 or 6 new articles today a lot easier. And that was certainly the case with digital PR a couple of years ago. Are these super creative, image-based, whatever types of digital PR campaigns still relevant today, or should they be more around a direct story that is something your company has done, or tied to your values, your purpose, which should it be? Or should it be a mixture? I don't really know.
I think it can definitely be a part of your digital PR strategy. We had a client recently who did one around a self-destructing iPad, which was like a really funny one that they did that. So I think it can be a part of your digital PR strategy. It can definitely generate buzz. And if it's picked up by some really great publications, it's definitely going to help with your goals. But I don't think it should be your main strategy. I personally think that your main strategy should be around your niche, your target audience, content that's really surrounding your industry. But then you can still throw in a few of the fun ones from time to time, but you should have your main focus as not being that, if that makes sense. Yeah.
I'm just replying to a few comments in the chat. It's been great to have everyone just share their questions with us during these recordings. We have, as I said, another couple of recordings coming up where we're going to be talking about paid social as well as email marketing. I do want to kind of get onto the tactical stuff today as well, so around like digital PR. So what kind of strategies, playbooks, workflows, whatever you want to call it, what's working today and that people can go away and do tomorrow when they start back at work?
So if I could list the most important things for a digital PR strategy, I think first of all, and this was with any strategy on any channel, is what are your goals? Are you aiming to increase your authority? Are you building organic traffic? Are you growing your brand and trust? And of course, it could be multiple of those as well. But I think with any strategy, that's the most important thing to do. The second one then is finding your narrative or your unique voice. What do you have to say that other people aren't already saying? Because that's what's going to make you stand out. Leveraging first-party data. So even if you don't have any data already, can you run any surveys? Is there anything, again, that's unique that you can share within your digital PR that's going to make people want to share your content? Building a multi-touch outreach plan. So we've touched on this, so the different channels as well. So you don't just want to do a single press release. You want to be doing like the manual pitching, help a reporter out. You want to be looking at social channels. Our podcast's an option for you because that's another great one as well. You really want to decide on all of the different channels. that you think digital PR will work for your business. Having an open mind, I touched on that one as well, is don't just think about things within your industry. Think about how you're going to look for those newsjacking opportunities as well, keeping an eye on the trends, optimizing for AI. So the most important part with this is the EEAT. And I think especially with digital PR is that expertise and that authority within your industry. That's what's going to make you stand out. And that's also going to help with AI search as well, is having that expert knowledge within there. And then I think the last one, sorry, there's so many points, is tracking the success. So beyond link count, you also want to be looking at referral traffic, audience engagement, your brand perception as well. It's not just about, I've produced this many links, my domain authority has increased to this amount. You really want to look at all of those other areas as well to see how it's impacting your business as a whole.
Wow. That's superb. I mean, there's a lot to dive into just there. Charlie, what are your immediate thoughts from some of Abby's recommendations?
Well, some of what Abby was just describing was really making me think of The Ordinary, who are a client of ours, but they have, before even coming to us, for a long time been running an excellent PR strategy. One of, I think, the most focused PR strategies I've seen over a long period of time from a brand. And what they decided to do was position themselves for best value skincare and science-backed skincare. And that is what they lead on heavily in all of their PR. And it gives them such a good angle for the work that they're doing. So across all of the publications, there's all sorts, with influencers, but with, like, you know, Glamour, Glossier. I'm probably not the person to think of all of the the beauty magazines that they're in, but a lot of them, they are in different ways communicating that positioning of their brand. So that might be, you know, products from The Ordinary that are under £15 or under $15 if they're doing US or Canadian targeted campaign. And that content comes up all the time. And it's really done them such a huge service in cornering the part of the market that they want to be in. And I think if you're a business, doesn't actually matter what industry you're in, you can take a lot of inspiration from Googling The Ordinary or putting them into ChatGPT to have a look at the kinds of articles and PR work that they've been doing over time, because it is just, they have dominated it. They have all of the articles that you could need, with so many different influencers, journalists, publications, where they've taken PR ops, they've spoken about it, they've done written content on their own site. They've really thought about what they want to do and how they want to be seen. And that comes across really, really well in the brand, just taking that structured approach. And it sounds, it's simple, and I think that's why it works. Like, it's not simple in terms of the amount of work that actually goes into making it happen, but the concept is simple. Just one or two really, really key areas you want to position your brand in, and then going hard on those. And I think it makes such a difference. Obviously, you want to choose one that is going to work well. You're going to have to look at competitors and see how they're positioning and decide that it's where you really want to bake your bread. I've been talking about bread a lot in this podcast, but that's the one that came to mind that I was thinking of. I don't know if anything came to your mind, Dale, when you were listening to Abby talk there.
No, I was actually trying to think about, like, how do you go to the next step. So I think one of the most complicated stages of all of this is deciding what to talk about, and how you tie it into, you know, you may not have like a campaign release, a product release, or anything like that. So you have to kind of default to what your business is about, which I think is a lot harder than if you do have something to release in the next quarter. If you're building up to a new product development or something, it's much easier, because you can just say, right, on this date, we're launching this product, and therefore we have to have all these strategic points matched. Like, we need to have a press release that goes out on this day. We need to have interviews booked at this time. We need to have this pre-recorded stuff that goes out on the day as well. There's a lot more organization involved, and that tends to happen for, like, bigger companies, you know, and again, where they do have regular releases of products or brand new services, perhaps. But many companies might not have that. They're literally just, okay, we have a very strong offering. We know exactly who we're for, and it's very unique. We're the best against our competitors as well. But, like, pulling out the story, I think, is probably the hardest part for a lot of B2B companies in particular. And I say that because people often talk about B2B as being boring to boring. Like, people just, how do I make this exciting? And I think some people who will be listening to this or watching along might be thinking, my business is way too boring to do any kind of fun, creative digital PR stuff. And I wonder if either of you would like to challenge that.
Yes, we would. Firstly, the belief that your business is boring, like your business may be dry, but there's something interesting to be unearthed in every business. And I think part of it is you may not have, fancy new product or service launches going on, and you're not, not opening global offices or whatever. It doesn't matter. What you actually need to think about is what you do have going on. And sometimes that can just be communicating things you might have communicated before in slightly different ways, talking about what the business values, the things that they've been doing, bits and pieces that you do in the community that the business probably does like really regularly. If you sponsor a local football team or something like that, you can talk about that pretty frequently. And I think you can also look for trends of what's going on. There's like a million international something days that exist in the calendar, and there's always going to be journalists who are going to be writing something about that. Like the upcoming one's going to be International Women's Day, for example. So if you're a business who's got a good proportion of women in your team, for example, that's a great thing to be talking about around this time in International Women's Day. And you might have, more representation than the industry does on average. You can probably find some stats online about it. You might have a leadership team that's got more women than the average team in your sector. And you can actually kind of take those topics around different things going on throughout the calendar year. And, not all of them are going to be relevant, but you can usually find something and actually create a conversation and a story about it. And in that example, like if you are a business that has a higher proportion of women compared to the average business in your industry, there's a lot to be talked about in terms of what you've done differently, why women want to work for your business in particular. It's probably because you have some really great business policies that make working life for women much better. And you can actually then sort of take a stand and decide to influence your industry in a really positive way. And all that comes from just like, oh, there's this International Women's Day is happening. Do we have anything that we would like to say about this? And sometimes that's just having a conversation with your colleagues to say, this International something day is coming up. Is there anything that anyone in the team has that they might want to say? And in that example, probably HR would be like, oh, I've thought of, I do have a topic. And then the marketing person is like, great, I've got something I can really run with here. And that can be a whole PR campaign in itself. And no change is needed. You didn't need to do anything new or launch anything new in your business. It's just what you already had going on there.
Abby, do you have anything else to add to that one?
I think that was, covered so much. I think just what I would add on as well is if you think about all of the news articles that you see online, 99.9% of those have people's opinions within there. And the amount of opportunities that we see that's like, this situation is currently happening. Business owners, how have you dealt with this? How have you experienced it? And you'd be probably really surprised how many opportunities are out there where you can talk about your experiences. Just to add on to what you were saying, Charlie, with International Women's Day, but news is happening all the time, and the amount of news, like amount of reporters that want information to go into that from business owners, from B2B. I think we often see more B2B opportunities as well than we do B2C, just because there's so much. I think there's just a lot more than people would expect. And no product, no service is ever boring. There's always somebody who's going to find that interesting.
This also does remind me, it's not B2B, but one of our clients, Aged Care Bathrooms, and they're amazing. They install bathrooms that are accessible, mostly for elderly people, but there are a couple of other different target customers they have as well. And some of this, I think, is also about farming your own content. So one of the things that they did was actually commission a YouGov survey, or I say they, us, we as a team commissioned a YouGov survey to find out how many people in the UK were actually struggling with bathing challenges, particularly if they lived independently or if they lived with someone. And it was quite a lot. It was, I think, 26% of respondents, I've got written down, had a household member who struggled with bathing or showering. So that's already quite a high percentage to have someone in the household like that. And then 65% of them were unaware that there were actually facilities grants available to help with that, to make those sort of amendments that you might need to make that more accessible and give someone like the independence they need. And, from there, they took that even further, and we launched like a change.org petition around it. And a lot of this came from just conversations we had with one of the company owners, Sam, about what he actually cares about. Because he was really personally motivated about what a problem this is, because he works so closely with these people and knows so much about their lives and how that actually affects their independence. And we were like, there's probably something here. Like, would you want to create a change.org petition on this? And not everyone, of course, not every business would feel comfortable doing it, but it's something that he felt really strongly about. And that was from us doing that YouGov survey, finding that data and thinking, right, there's more that we could actually do here to push for accessible housing and help people secure like this funding assistance if they need it. And that wasn't, that wasn't a new service or a new product or anything like that. That was just thinking about, okay, what do the people in this business value? And is there any kind of useful data that we could do to find out in the UK about something relevant to this business? And I think that was a really great campaign, both in terms of the ethical side, but also in terms of like how it relates to the business and promotes their service in a way that is really important to their customer.
I think that takes us back to what I was saying at the very beginning, which is about the three critical elements of having like a very strong narrative and speaking about it with authority and leading with data driven. Like you've got some data or some information that people were kind of looking for or may not realize they're looking for, but you can do a bit of multi-channel amplification as well. So you've got the idea, you've got the thing that you want to tell people about this scheme or the fund. Great. You don't necessarily just have to start off and think, oh, I'm going to create something on my website and I can go and reach out to various people. But you can kind of snip that down and say, if I'm that person who needs that information, where are they going to be hanging out? Maybe I need to do some outreach to, Age Concern UK or various other different platforms, and maybe pop up and they may have an internal forum, an intranet or something like that, which is reaching the audience or at least somebody related to that audience and getting that message out there a bit more. There's like so many different channels that are probably untapped that would love to get this information. Like part of the, I'm on the board of a charity, and part of the complication of like trying to reach the end user to bring more people in is that we don't necessarily know exactly the right channel to reach them on. We can have some information on the website, but then we've got to do SEO to make sure it appears. Or maybe the best place is to do some organic social, because we know people are looking through there and we can pop up at the right time if there's enough engagement on it. Or do we go and get ourselves listed in directories specifically for this, or go and appear on other people's websites around the subject matter of disability activities in Edinburgh or in this area. There's like lots of different places you can do it. And if you pick a singular story and say like, here's, for example, there's somebody, one of the end users, one of the people who uses the charity, ECAS. There was a story about them, and it creates a good opportunity to talk about the activities because of the support that we've been able to offer to that, that person of many out of many people. But yeah, we could then go and speak to somebody on a podcast about it, or go and write a newsletter about it, or there's so many different avenues to do it. And as long as you have an idea of like what you're going to talk about, it may literally just be, we installed this bathroom for someone, they really loved it, and they loved it so much their life has changed around, and therefore this is a really happy story. The local news want to hear about it, and that gets amplified everywhere else. Especially if you're reaching out to, try to think of a newspaper like Edinburgh News or something where it's almost syndicated as well. So if I go, because they're owned by Reach PLC or something, if I get a story there and it picks up, that then gets taken to other websites too, which means that your brand has gone from being covered locally in an online newspaper to then being covered across all of them that are owned by Reach PLC, or I don't actually know if it's Reach, it might be Hearst or someone else. I can't remember. But yeah, all from one story. Just to put it back to me asking you stuff instead of me talking. You said in there about Sam at Aged Care Concern had this thing that he was interested in, cared about. How do you do digital PR differently for a founder-led business where the person is the reason that many people are aware of the company? They've been publishing X different places, like Deliciously Ella, we talked about many times before. It's been like the focal point of all of their marketing. How do you do digital PR differently for like a person founder-led business versus say a marketing-led business or a sales-led business? Is there any need to do it differently, or can you apply the same kind of system, strategy, framework to any kind of business?
Oh, it's a good question. I think there's a lot that overlaps that can be really effective for both. So, for example, in aged care bathrooms, it's not founder-led in the sense that it's not built around, Sam's persona. It's not his face on everything, but it is his business, and him and his dad run that business. So some of the work that we've done, some of the petitions like that, the petition was started in Sam's name because that was him agreeing to do it. But it might not be that everyone who first comes to the aged care brand would know Sam. In fact, they wouldn't. From the website, you wouldn't suddenly know who Sam is. You wouldn't have become a follower of Sam, for example. But all of his customers are going to know him once they actually engage with the business. Compared to a founder-led brand where actually a lot of people come to know that founder or that person first, and it's sometimes I was going to say relationship, but they feel like they've built a relationship with that founder through watching them, and that's often on things like podcasts or videos or social media. So the one that always comes to mind for me is Grace Beverly, who runs Tala and Shreddy and various other businesses. And a lot of the women who buy from her, they're going to have known her first through her big social media presence. And I think in those cases, there's an opportunity to lean so much more heavily on what the founder cares about, because they actually, are almost giving a voice to their marketing. In many ways, they are their head of marketing a lot of the time, because they spend so much of their own time doing that and cultivating that relationship and putting their perspectives out there. But I also don't think that a business that doesn't have that founder-led mentality, they still have that, like, we still have a team that's behind everyone who has thoughts and feelings and values and things that they care about and want to talk about. And I think that we shouldn't see them so separately that, everything that comes from the founder is their way of speaking, compared to a company that doesn't have a founder-led brand or marketing strategy to it. Doesn't mean that you can't also push on those values and do PR that relates to things that you care about. So I think there's differences, but I also think there's a lot of overlap in how you can effectively run a PR strategy.
How about yourself, Abby? Would you run a founder-led business, founder-led marketing, digital PR campaign the same way as a business one or a sales-led one? Or would you amp up certain parts differently?
I think a lot of the elements are going to be really similar, but as well, one of the tools that we absolutely love to use for our digital PR is Quoted. And even on there, you have the option to add a source as a product. So even on tools like that, you can go in and you can add the founder. So as an example, we could go in and add Charlie, but we could also go in and just add the product, the Ordinary. We could go and put them in there directly as well. So I think a lot of it is similar, but you're not getting the exact, it's going to be a little bit different as well when you're having like a founder-led brand. It's speaking from one direct person. Even in a case where it's not a founder-led business, it is still good to have a person who has the expertise. So I think there's a lot of overlap there, because we would say, just using you as an example, Dale, if you're looking for a business where the founder doesn't want to be seen in digital PR, but you're a really great option to have expertise, we could use you within the digital PR instead to be the voice behind the brand. So I think there's a lot of overlap in there.
Yeah, I definitely agree with.
Sorry. I was just going to say, I also think as businesses get bigger, it's not unusual for the CEO to be quoted and to still be part of the PR strategy. And I think quite often when we're talking about very sort of large corporate businesses, it is the CEO. And I think other businesses, particularly if you're in the SME space, you've got more flexibility to use different people within the business in your PR strategy who are perhaps confident speakers that would happily go on podcasts that, are like to give their opinions and have articles that are in their name. There's probably someone like that in the business, even if it's not you as the marketing director or you as the business owner. I think it's really only by the time you get to the size of a big corporate that the expectation is that quotes would come from the CEO of the company or certain people in high level roles within the company. So I also think there's a lot of flexibility for most businesses in how they position their PR and who it is that is the spokesperson for those brands.
I'm actually a big fan of just getting people on the phone and just having a chat with them, recording it and thinking, okay, what can I pull out of there to turn into a story or into my next piece of content? Or, that's one of the reasons I love doing podcasts, is because there's so much opportunity to kind of pull out people's expertise and then turn it into something else. For founders, or let's say you are in a bigger business and you do have lots of people, huge teams, 50, 60, 70, 100 people, but nobody who's like super forthcoming when they're not super happy to jump on a webinar or do a podcast. They probably know the subject matter so well that you can just get them on a call and record it and then pull out all the ideas from there. Like, okay, they don't want to go and do speaking, presenting, stuff like that. No problem. We can turn their insights into a story anyway, get that published, and we can build it into something super interactive. Or maybe that I've got the data, I'm taking a data-driven approach and I'm putting first-party data approach. I'm putting all the data and putting that into a study and then attaching some quotes from that person into it. So we're matching a really interesting and insightful interactive content asset alongside some expertise. So we're matching that EEAT acronym, which Google loves, around expertise. Why is it? No, experience now. Experience, expertise, authoritativeness, and trust. Basically showing that you can prove who you are and that you know what you're talking about. I love kind of pulling those conversations out and reusing them and repurposing them. But I realize we're coming up to time, and I do want to recap a little bit about how to, as the title says, copy this proven digital PR strategy in 2025. We've spoken a lot about it, about how to do it, but how do we? What are the steps? What should I be doing? Like, for example, we had a really great interactive asset created by our content team for Patino Law Firm, who's one of our US-based clients. And I love it. They took some data and turned it into this super, just amazing piece of interactive content that other people have linked to and they've been able to go out and promote. How do we get to that point? How do we create that? And who wants to take the step-by-steps and guide us through it?
I'll take it. And then Abby, you can add to it if you've got anything else. I think goals is first. Target positioning and topics, target publications, pitches to those publications, to those journalists. I'm including things like news jumping within that, and regular press releases. That's probably the top 5 quick things to actually do in the order that I've said.
Excellent. Abby, do you have anything to add to that?
I don't think there's anything I'd add. I just think I would just add in the last step of just tracking and measuring it and just keep going back to it. So if you produce a piece of data, like a really good data study today, and you like send it all out, you pitch it, and then a month later, don't just forget about it, because just keep an eye, see what comes up, because 6 months from now, there may be an amazing article that's coming out and they need exactly your data to go into it. So yeah, just keep it in the back as well, ready just in case.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. That was probably one of the biggest tips I ever got from somebody else in our space, which was, just because you create a creative asset once doesn't mean you can't just like get loads of stuff out of it every year. So they said in their particular case, they were doing 4 assets a year. Well, they create 4 new ones, and then they'd have 4 old ones to go and promote as well. So it was like the constant evergreen link building potential or PR potential through those assets. And I just love that. I think it's absolutely brilliant. Sometimes we're thinking too small, like I'm going to do this thing, then I'll launch it and that's going to be it. No, there is a longevity to this stuff. Some of it will be short, one shot. Newsjacking especially is like one shot, but has huge potential. But building your own thing and thinking about long term can be great for helping you scale up as well. And just one final thought before we just get to the one of the questions we've got at the side here. You might have that feeling you aren't able to create a lot. You've got access to Canva, but that's about it. Like, you don't really have a lot of potential to create interactive assets. First of all, like, come and speak to us. We're more happy to kind of consult with you and help you come together with an idea and help you build it out. That's absolutely, for sure. We've got good track record there. But you can speak to other people and say, listen, I've got all this data. I'm just going to borrow you to build out the beautiful part, and then I'm going to run with the rest of it. Just don't feel like you don't have an opportunity to find support there and build out the missing piece of the puzzle. Because I imagine you do understand your audience. You do have some great ideas. You've got some data to pull from as well. There's nothing wrong with just saying, I can't do that bit and I'm okay with it. I'm just going to get somebody else to design me a beautiful thing, a beautiful infographic, whatever. That's totally fine. Okay. Great. We've got a question from Caroline who's asking, is X, formerly Twitter, still the main hangout for journalists, or have they drifted away to Blue Sky, Substack, and so on? Who's got the answer?
I think it's still the main one. I think people are adding on Blue Sky, Substack. LinkedIn is when I think people are using a bit more. I don't think people have drifted away completely from X. It may potentially happen in the future, but it seems that there's more options. I saw as well that people are starting to use Threads more as well, because that's more of a text-based one. But I still think that X is the primary one still.
Yeah, certainly seems to be the case. I think like any digital PR, you've got to have a list of contacts. You've got to have a list of different places that you can turn to. Before, you could just go to X and that was it. Now you're probably going to have to spend half an hour each day going to different ones, or just using tools like Quoted to bring those opportunities to you rather than you going to them. Or you can use an agency that will find those opportunities for you. Great. Any final thoughts before we close for today?
Just on the Twitter one, or the X one, I should say, I also think that the idea of trawling Twitter is like, that sounds terrible. I would definitely not start your PR journey there. There's loads of really good PR tools now. And I think I read a stat somewhere very recently that was saying like tool usage in PR is up by 67% last year. And that's because the tools are so good now. So things like Quoted mean you don't actually have to spend time trawling through X threads like you might have done 10 years ago. And I think one of the times that it becomes more useful is actually once you've started building that momentum in PR, you'll find that you're often speaking to the same or similar journalists, because most of the time journalists work in niches, and freelance journalists in particular are farming stories in the same niche, but looking for different angles for different publications. And once you show that you are a reliable source, that you can give an interesting and good quote about something, and you can do it on time, which you'd be surprised how many people aren't on time, and is something which, to be fair, many of our clients struggle with because they are so busy. And one of the reasons to actually have an agency who supports with your PR is to make sure you get really, really good responses to journalists really quickly, because PR is a time sensitive thing. But once you have that, you'll find that you're interacting with similar journalists or the same people more often, and they trust you. And actually PR starts to become much easier because you've got those contacts. And when you start, you'll have almost none, which is why I think PR tools are so useful to begin with.
Yeah, most definitely. I think that's probably the hardest bit, is the outreach side, like getting in into people's inboxes and making yourself relevant. At the end of the day, the journalists often do have goals of daily articles to create, depending on which company, which publisher they work for. And they're probably very happy to, when they've got 6 articles to write, to have one idea that might work. And that's why press releases can be good. So don't be afraid of just getting in front of people and just putting it out there. But you've got to write your email well to make sure that you give just enough information that they can figure out, okay, I can see the angle here. I can almost copy paste this into the article, and I don't have to do as much work. They're probably going to be far more thankful for that, of just giving the entire story, doing it all for them. They can tweak it. But don't be afraid the prospect of, these people have the trusted contacts, and therefore they're only going to publish their stories. And I'm just going to be another email in their inbox of hundreds. You've got to start somewhere. It takes a bit of graft, but you will eventually get in the same position of having, a good contact list, and they'll trust you with your ideas and sources and stories first. Well, that's it for this week. Sorry, go on, Charlie.
Sorry, I was just going to say, it's given me a final point, which is that PR is probably one of the most fun things in marketing, in my opinion, but also one of the things that involves having the highest resilience, because actually the responses you get to the number of pitches you send out is not going to be as high as you might hope. So if you got 1 in 20 responses, and that's like 1 in 20 pitches, that's a really good result. But that means that you need to keep going, and you can't be deterred easily with PR, because you do have to put a lot of pitches out there to actually get some really good results back. So just worth bearing in mind if you are doing PR or you've been pushing and you're feeling like, oh, I haven't got as far as I wanted to. If you've sent like 5 emails, nowhere near enough. Once you've got to about 100 emails, you should start to actually see something come back from it.
Abby, any final thoughts from yourself?
No, I think Charlie's covered all of it. I think I just completely agree with that with digital PR, there is a lot of rejection in there, a lot of being ignored, and you just have to keep going, because you just never know, especially with things like quoted as well. You never know when an opportunity is going to come up for like your dream publication. And it could be that you just submit a comment from that data study that you did a couple of months back, and it just takes off. So just keep going, really. Yeah, just agreeing with Charlie.
Love it. Well, thank you everyone who's been listening along to us live. You can catch our next one by going to youtube.com/Exposure Ninja, and you should see it pop up there. But the best way to stay in touch is to go to our website and sign up for our newsletter, and you'll be able to get an update about all of our forthcoming live sessions too. If you want to hear all of the previous ones, you can go to exposure.ninja/strategies-2025. I'll make sure that's linked in the description a little bit later. And we'll see you all at the next one, which should be about how to create an incredible email marketing strategy that will help you not only convert more people from leads to sales, but increase your retention rate, increase your repurchase rate as well. Thank you all, and see you then. Bye.